The Lord be with you. Welcome to chapel.
In an Anglican school, we talk a lot about values. We talk about justice and we talk about generosity. We talk about caring for others. We talk about love. Jesus talked a lot about loving your neighbour. And someone once challenged him and said, but who is actually my neighbour? I mean, it can be confusing. How far do my neighbour boundaries go if I have to look after other people? And Jesus really pushed against that boundary and said, and used the parable of the Good Samaritan to say that your neighbour is so inclusive that it even includes the person that you might count as your political enemy, because at that time, a Samaritan represented their political enemy. Jesus was saying, we're all neighbours to each other. Our Bible reading for this week comes from the book of James in the New Testament. It talks about the difference between the way we treat people who look poor and people who look rich. I mean, this was written 2,000 years ago, but it still seems kind of relevant. Listen to this. For if a person wearing a gold ring and fine clothing comes into your assembly, and then a poor person in shabby clothing also comes in, and if you pay attention to the one who wears the fine clothing and say, you can sit here in a very nice place, while you say to the poor person, you can stand over there or sit at my feet, have you then not made distinctions amongst yourself and become judges? Listen, has not God chosen those who are poor in the world to be rich in faith? You shall love your neighbour as yourself. This comes from the second chapter of James. You might have noticed that religious people care a lot about reaching out and noticing those who are vulnerable and poor in the world. We talk about that, us religious people. We say if you're going to have faith, then put it into action by reaching out to those in need. And when I look at the world today, I see a lot of need. The example in the Bible just then was about giving people privilege, giving them a better seat if they're dressed beautifully, and not letting the people who look homeless or poor sit in the good seats. And yet, that's an old-fashioned analogy, because in the world today, having a seat at the table is about economics. It's about freedom. It's about trade. It's about refugees. So when we think about what's happening in the world, and we think about wanting to care for those in need in the world, part of a religious response might be getting political, engaging with what's happening in our international politics. I think maybe the saints of our world are the ones who are always reaching out to those who don't have, those who are vulnerable, those who don't have housing, those who don't have enough food, those who don't have stable homes. We're all part of this great family, of God's family. And so when we see things that are going on in the news around the world, it's religious to care about that, to use our purchasing power to support fair trade practices, to advocate for those who don't have a voice for themselves. May our prayers be with those people across the Middle East, those people in Afghanistan, those people who have family in vulnerable parts of the world. Our prayers are with those nations who cannot afford vaccinations, who don't have great health systems, who don't have great intensive care units. As we finish, our prayers are for our neighbours around the world who are in need. May God be with them, and may God empower us to do whatever we can to support those around the world. Have a great week. Have a great last couple of weeks of term. Keep an eye on those who you might need to reach out to, who maybe don't have strong connections with others. Think about this week who you might be able to reach out to and say hi, connect with in some way. Think about who your neighbour might be and who's right on the edge of being no one's neighbour, who you might be able to reach out to this week. See you, everyone. Have a great week.
Let us go in peace to love and serve the Lord. In the name of Christ. Amen.